às tantas esta imagem desapareceu, sabes? Estou aqui a fazer isto. Quando estás a ver, desapareceu a imagem. Eu posso olhar para aqui para a câmera? Ok, anyway, I'm here. What did you click? Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Comments?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Satya Kaur. I'm a co-founder of the Mother's Journey Partnership. And I'm here with you for one of our fortnightly talks on themes related to maternity and slightly on the alternative side. I pride myself for including topics on these talks, on this series of talks that are slightly controversial, or they include overtly knowledge of energetics, or the acknowledgement of the spirit and the human in its various dimensions. But I also refer to scientific information and practical tools. The Mother's Journey is a training that we offered. I do it together with my partner Elena O'Keefe. It's a training that we offer and trains people to be pre- and postnatal yoga teachers. So to coach women through this journey that is pregnancy and motherhood. The training is open to anyone of any stage of life. It's only open to women. Male participants are not allowed, because the dynamics change when there's men present, when women stop being themselves, paying attention to the other. And I personally believe it's a training that is useful for women any stage of their life, whether they contemplate motherhood or whether it's not on her cards and they don't intend to go down that path. It's a very useful information because it makes you aware of your various dimensions and what your mothers went through, and what you can go through, and why we are the way we are, and how you can help others. So, yes, it's also, apart from being a Mother's Journey teacher, a pregnancy yoga teacher trainer, I'm also a general yoga teacher trainer at levels 1 and 2, instructors and practitioners. And I was also a midwife for about 9 years in northeast London, a very multicultural community, and I practiced as a community midwife working in and out of hospital. I'm a mother of 3 and I have 3 grandchildren as well. So all this informs me in what I package and deliver through the Mother's Journey. It's an online training that will be relaunched again now online in October of this year. So, let's talk about placenta. I don't know if you know, but placenta is a word that is related to the word pleasure. Placenta, placer, means pleasure in the Latin languages. So, for this reason, I name this talk The Pleasure of the Placenta. What is the placenta exactly? Many of you may know, but some might never have bothered to look into it. But it's a live organ of substantial size that acts as the interface between the baby and its mother. So it's an organ that filters the maternal blood and nourishes the fetal blood, and in turn absorbs the byproducts of the fetal metabolism and delivers them into the mother's circulation, so she then eliminates through her kidneys. So the placenta really acts like an organ for the baby, which the baby's in uterus as a fetus doesn't have many metabolic functions of its own. It's dependent on the placenta, on the mother, which acts like the lungs of the baby. The baby doesn't breathe. It's the placenta that takes in the oxygen and gets rid of the carbon dioxide. Also acts as the liver, assimilates and processes the nutrients. Acts like the kidneys, it filters the fetal blood. It acts as a barrier that protects the baby from toxins and bacteria that may be in the mother's circulation. It's also the digestive organ. It's like the stomach of the baby because it receives the nutrients, etc. So it's a very vital organ that in our culture, in today's world, it gets discarded after the birth. So for example, when I had my first child a long time ago, 1980, at that time all the placentas in that hospital in the maternity ward were collected, and then they were frozen and sold to cosmetic companies. They used the hormones contained in the placenta to make face creams, whatever. Then came the HIV epidemic and the risk of the placentas containing the virus, and that practice ceased, and they became just all incinerated, destroyed, discarded. What I propose in this talk is that we consider the use of the placenta, what we do with that such a vital and major organ of the mother during those 9 months and for the baby. And my suggestion here is that we use it, and that the mother dares to ingest it, because it has a lot of benefits. Let me explain. These benefits are not testified by major controlled trials, by major research, because it's not in the interest of pharmaceutical companies, which usually sponsor research projects. It's not in their interest that we find that the placenta is actually very rich, very beneficial, and it can substitute purchased nutritional supplements. Do you understand? So, the information you find out there about the idea of ingesting the placenta is mostly negative, is considered dangerous and of no proven benefits. Well, my dears, the reality is that every single mammal on the surface of this earth, and I'm talking about whales and mice and monkeys and cats, dogs, domestic animals, whether they're herbivores or carnivores, they all ingest the placenta. The females ingest the placenta after they give birth. Why don't we? If it's so obviously nutritious for the mother, why do we discard it and make it, no, we're not animals, no, that's gross and that's not for us? Then we are the ones who then are depleted and depressed in the postnatal period. There's a relation there, and let me highlight the possible benefits of ingesting the placenta. How you ingest it, we'll discuss later. But now let's consider the possible benefits of taking in the placenta. Being a very nobody knows exactly what causes postnatal depression. I don't want to go into it in detail here. But when you receive some vital energy, when you take what your body most obviously needs and produced itself, so it's a recycling, we're not taking a foreign body, we're kind of ingesting what belongs to us, what's part of our makeup during the pregnancy. it is suggested that it prevents postnatal depression. I've observed in a few cases where this was one reason they explained why this woman didn't get depressed, because she ingested the placenta. It's not the only reason, it's multifactor. Anyway, because the placenta contains in high quantities the two main hormones that sustain pregnancy, such as progesterone and estrogens, which are drastically reduced at birth, it makes sense that by ingesting the placenta you re-establish some kind of hormonal balance, that you don't go right down and depleted on that level, that is sustained for a while. So hormonal balance, another one. It improves mood. It's a gut feeling. It's about this animal, this woman who's also an animal at this time of giving birth, more than any other time. She's a creature. And if the creature is given the freedom and the option of doing what she feels like, and if she's in touch with the instinct, she feels like something is replenished in her, that she's herself in her body. There's a great danger of disconnect at the time of birth, and she's back in her body. So it very often improves mood. It also increases milk supply and energy levels, and it can prevent depletion, especially if the placenta is ingested over time. It prevents depletion, which sets in later on, not immediately. But with the breastfeeding, depletion can happen. Nutritional depletion and mental depletion. It can, if there's blood loss, it can counteract the blood loss, postpartum hemorrhage. Even in traditional Chinese medicine, it was often prescribed as a herb. I know it's not a herb, but in Chinese medicine we call herbs what is not necessarily herbs, but it was used to treat some conditions, not just postpartum depletion. But the negative connotations, and I'm sure there's some of you who never considered this, so be open to the possibility of that we were mistaken for some generations, that we were disconnected, and we have been, and we are disconnected from nature. And the inclusion of this practice for mothers at time of giving birth is a way of reconnecting and kind of realizing that nothing is by chance. It's not by chance, and it's not a mistake that animals ingest the placenta after the birth. If you plan to or consider trying out to take in the placenta, there's very options how you do it. It's important that you observe some rules of hygiene. So, for example, you should wash the placenta well after the birth, because it can be mixed with feces or urine. So it's important to rinse it well. Okay. We always advise that the mother ingests her own placenta. It's not a shared dish or a shared drink, but each to his own. But that placenta is for that mother, is not for other people. And that the instruments that you use to cut, chop, or whatever, blend the placenta, if you're going to make a smoothie, that they be properly sterilized before you use them again for other preparations. It's important that you keep it fresh, so if you deliver the placenta today, within a short time, couple of hours, that you that you refrigerate it. Then in the refrigerator, like most other meat product, fresh produce, will keep 2 or 3 days maximum. So if you don't intend to consume it all within 2 or 3 days, which I think is too much for most of us who are not used to eating raw meat, I think it's better to freeze it in smaller doses so that you can defreeze and take it over time, okay? So what can you do with the placenta? Well, it's your oyster. Many things you can do with a way to taking in what you've lost in a way. So eating the placenta raw and fresh is an option, and this is best done as a smoothie. To actually bite the placenta is tough. It's a bit like liver. It's tough to bite and eat. So if you use it in a smoothie, in small quantities, it's good. Mothers postnatally lack what we call agni, which is digestive fire. So if you give a large dose of placenta, it may be that she has difficulty digesting. It's better to take a small amount each day and mix it with the juices. By the way, the gift that is associated with this talk, if you registered for it, is a placenta recipe for a smoothie. Very nice, tasty, very rich, and most new mothers say very delicious. So the recipe will come to you tomorrow. So yes, you can drink it in a smoothie in small amounts. You can also cook it, when you cook meat or you cook liver. Actually, the placenta is the only meat ingredient that a vegetarian would have, and is the only meat you have without killing an animal. So for vegetarian is also, you could say, a treat, and a very welcome treat for vegetarian mothers. Now it's more fashionable to make things complicated, and it's not entirely complicated. But there's many doulas and companies out there which offer the service of encapsulating the placenta. This placenta has to be sterilized, dried or dehydrated, then has to be ground into a powder, and then it needs to be packed and encapsulated in gelatin capsules. And this permits the mother to ingest the placenta over a longer period in small doses or larger doses. Very small doses do not make so much difference, because if you're actually trying to get the nutrients, the proteins, the minerals, the vitamins, the hormones, then you need to have many capsules a day. So that's something you can do. Homeopathic pharmacies also offer you the possibility of creating homeopathic remedy from your placenta. It can be very good for you in the postpartum period, and it can be also good for your baby if the baby gets sick at some point in his infancy. And the stem cells in the placenta and the energy goes into the homeopathic remedy, can really remind the baby of the life impulse that it has to the placenta. The placenta and the baby share a lot of life for those 9 months together, so there's a lot of information related to growth and experience in utero that is imprinted in the placenta. That information is all there. So if you choose to make a homeopathic remedy, or if you choose to instead do a ritual for the placenta, meaning bury it and make a site where the information is contained and retained, it can be a place where the baby can refer to later, especially if you plant a tree that grows thanks to it. The placenta is incredible fertilizer. So there's many things you can do with the placenta. I realize you can also make a tincture with the placenta. like any other tincture with an alcohol base. Um, but this tincture will not contain the substance of the placenta, only the essence of it. So there was a question earlier on in the Portuguese talk that I gave about an hour ago. Somebody was asking, what's the benefits of using the tincture? Will have its essence, not the raw materials of the placenta. Do you understand? So it depends what you want to use it for. You want to be more a reminder, or you want it to be food stuff. We have choices, we have knowledge. That most culture and the system is not, like I mentioned before, is not well informed. We don't permit ourselves to exercise our instincts, otherwise we'll be eating it. So my idea to put this information forward is that yes, women have a choice. They should go with their feelings. It's too scary to have a woman who's very instinctive. It's just scary for us in our culture. But in childbirth, pregnancy and the postpartum, this is very essential, because at that level we share a lot with all other animals and creatures and mammals, and to try and not be instinctive at that time, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you decide to bury the placenta, and this is a very traditional ritual, not only in Africa but also the Americas, where the mother was respected. Because the placenta has been the baby's companion, I've said already, it contains the information that can encourage the baby on a subtle level, encourage the child, encourage the adult if it grows up and loses its way, to be reminded of its origins and its roots. So you need to make a deep enough hole so that it can't be dug out by rodents or pests. Do you understand? So the hole, if you're going to bury it, it should be quite deep. It's nice if there's a ceremony with witnesses that brought the baby, family, and the baby itself is brought to the place, location. And it's important that the location be somewhere accessible to the child or the adult later on. So let's say I'm living in this house now, I have a garden if I'm lucky, and I plant it in the garden. In a couple of years' time I moved. So the placenta is, and the tree that fed from it is not within reach, so it's a little bit useless. So public space is better, but somewhere that's not too obvious, because other authorities, park authority, whatever, might object, and it should be a distinguishable feature, so the growing up adult child can identify the place and refer to it for guidance, for inspiration, and for reassurance. We all have difficult times in our lives. We all experience shifts and crises in our lives, and to be able to refer to your origins or your ancestors, it can be a very useful source of support. But we explained the whole ritual and the correct way to do it. This is information shared with us by Subon Fusome, how to do it. We do this at the Mother's Journey training. If you have any comments or questions, remember you can put them through Facebook, or if you or you can post them tomorrow. I do look at your comments and I do respond, because I understand this is a bit controversial, there's some confusion, people don't know why they do this now, or I'm going to do the homeopathic thing, or they don't know how to use it. So, or people think, oh, I use the placenta to make print and make art. Yes, by all means do. but then what you're going to do with the placenta? If it's just for visuals, no. Oh, I forgot to mention, yet another option of how to utilize the placenta is to keep it with the baby without cutting the umbilical cord. The cord is normally severed and cut at birth or soon after, and we should ask ourselves why. The placenta belongs with the baby, and why not honor that? I know that the placenta, being a fleshy body, will degrade with time. In other words, it will rot and it will become smelly. But if you preserve it with salt and some herbs and essential oils, it's possible to keep it with the baby, not too strong, wrapped up well in cloth and a plastic bag. And I heard an account of a child of a friend of mine who had a lotus birth. This is called lotus birth, when you honor the integrity of the connection baby placenta. And it was very clear to both parents when the cord becomes brittle and it breaks naturally after a few days, maybe even a week. And there's a natural separation at that point. Such a placenta, of course, should not be consumed because it's decomposed. It's not fresh for consumption, but it can be used for burial. So yes, with the information that we have now that reaches us from all corners of the world, and all accounts, and what we learn from scientific information, we have too much information available. My idea with this talk on this topic, for example, is just to summarize it and to break it down so that you can make use of it and be encouraged and confident to contemplate a practice that we were made afraid of by our mothers and grandmothers and by the medical institutions. The time is coming to an end. I'm happy to communicate with you. Somebody's asking whether placenta consumption through capsules can prevent postnatal depression. In as much as it balances your hormones and in as much as it provides basic vital nutrients, yes, it can help prevent postnatal depression. We don't know exactly what causes postnatal depression, but there's a degree of disconnect which can happen at birth. And because the placenta is about connection, is about connecting mother and baby, is about connecting you and your past, you can address this factor of disconnect which happens in depression, and especially postnatal depression. I think can be a contributing factor. Of course, postnatal depression is also a result of the way our culture and our society is organized, and we know that in other cultures where lifestyle is very different, there's no evidence of depression, so you can draw your own conclusions. We'll give this. I'm here with you on Instagram and Facebook every 2 weeks, sharing a different topic from the mother's journey, through the journey of maternity, from preconception to child raising. So I'll be happy to share with you, but share with you through comments in the next 48 hours. I will have a look and we can exchange. So thank you very much for being there. It's a pleasure that you share this interest in these topics of female liberation and empowerment, and which if women are empowered, if mothers are empowered, the whole society is empowered. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Satnam. Where am I?